Designer. My name is Alisha. I also go by the handle at Miss Alisha Grace. I'm a wife, mom, middle school teacher by day, and a sewing content creator on the weekends. I was not expecting this skirt to blow up the way it did during my basketball makes series, but this skirt has exploded. For me personally, I am the micro of microist influencers, and I wouldn't even call myself an influencer. I just like making. But it got I think it's up to 50,000 views, which is a lot for me and my little page. And I quickly just posted a tiny video. I'll play it right here. But it was more so just showing the process of like, hey, I used 18 bandanas. I also used this pattern by this designer, and then I like put it all together and I got this skirt. And I didn't really take a lot of time when I was creating this skirt because, like I said, I was making it all during basketball season. And during basketball season, when there's sometimes 2, sometimes 3 home games a week, I'm just cranking it out. I'm not even filming the process. So the number one question I got on the post was, how did you make it? And I thought I was like pretty self-explanatory in the video where I was like, well, I took 18 bandanas, 9 for the front, 9 for the back. And I bought a bandana bundle from a brand called Hand Kerr. And then I also had like random bandanas just over the years, collecting them for like spirit days at school when I used to teach in high school, and we would like literally have a spirit day every other week. But I had just a whole bunch of random bandanas, and then I saw this one brand that I really wanted to buy bandanas from because it had the horses on it, and my husband's basketball team are the Broncos, and so that was the whole purpose of buying that specific bandana from that brand. And then I saw an inspiration photo, which is this inspiration photo right here, from a different brand where they had like a bandana skirt, and I was like, whoa, that would be so cute with the pink bandana that I just got. And I didn't want my bandanas to be like square. I've made a bandana dress in the past. I forget whose tutorial I followed when I made this, but maybe I'll put it in a text box down here when I actually remember. But I had made a bandana dress in the past, and so for this skirt, I wanted to turn it more on like the diamond shape of the bandana so that they would be, I don't know, just more flattering to the eye. I feel like the big chunky blocks really doesn't do well for my postpartum body. And so I wanted to elongate my already tall body. And so I came up with this concept, and then it just blew up on social media, which was shocking to me because my videos don't usually blow up. So I decided to take a weekend to kind of break down the steps. Now, the cutting out of the dress I do in my classroom, only because I don't have the space here. We have a very tiny home. My nook is like, I can literally touch wall to wall. Like I'm touching both walls. My nook is tiny since having my daughter and not having an entire sewing room, and that's fine. One day we'll move into a bigger house, but for right now, this is our situation. And so normally after school or before school, I'll stay a little bit later, or I'll get there a little bit early before my contract time, and I'll cut things out on that big cutting table that I have in the back of my classroom. And so that's why those portions of this video are filmed in my classroom. I didn't work on this project at my classroom. You'll see my personal sewing machine here in the video, but yes, that's where I did the majority of the cutting for this skirt, and when I show you the full 9 panels, which I sewed at home and then took to work. So the pattern in this video is the Sandra skirt by Sid Graham. And so you can see here we are using the pattern piece C, which is the pockets. And then this is the paneled version of her skirt, which uses the pattern piece A. You can see here my paper is so scrunched up because this is the 3rd time I'm using the pattern. But in this video, I'm going to show you how to make one big pattern piece so that you get that pattern piece A all together. Because the first time I cut out this pattern, and I showed it in my YouTube video for the basketball makes. So if you're interested in seeing that process, you can go back a few videos to find the basketball season makes. But honestly, what I did was just lay this down on top of my bandana skirt all sewn together. So I was making a denim version of this skirt while I was also making the bandana version. And so before I sewed up the side seams of the bandana skirt, or not the bandana skirt, excuse me, the denim skirt, I used that panel piece to cut out my bandana skirt front and back because they're the same pieces. So this time around, I'm actually going to take the pattern piece and make one big full pattern piece so that I have that in my pattern stash moving forward because I really love this pattern. Like, I could not be a bigger fan. I love this pattern so much because it is a classroom appropriate pattern, which is quickly rising to the top of my make list as it warms up here in California. But just in general, I feel like a lot of my closet or a lot of the things that I make don't necessarily translate well into the classroom. Because most of the time when I'm making things, it's like one-off pieces for an event, or maybe I'm gonna go to a winery or, you know, a wedding or a baby shower. And so I feel like I don't really focus a lot of my time and energy on making things that would be suitable for the classroom. And so I have a ton of bandanas left over. They were all navy. And so this skirt isn't going to be the same color palette as this skirt. This skirt was primarily like this terracotta, pinks and browns, and, you know, it was really like floral. The next one is definitely more floral. It's not as cohesive all the way around because I wasn't going to buy new bandanas for this. I was just going to use what's in my stash. Again, that's one of my 2026 goals, is to sew through my stash before I go out and buy anything brand new. And so I kind of really pieced it together. I've laid it out. I've pieced it together before I'm going to sew. And so you'll see those videos here shortly. But I'm using what I have. And so it's kind of more like a bluey, greeny, pink, peachish type of skirt. So I'm sure it'll complement the other skirt I already have, but I am going to make a couple changes to the pattern. I'm going to increase the width of the waistband. I know it calls for like an inch, but I much prefer a thicker waistband, so I'm probably going to use 1.5 inches to 2 inches. I know that might affect like the length and it will come up a little bit, but honestly, I'm not bothered by that because it's still going to be midi in length. And yeah, that's probably like the biggest change I'm going to make. So if you aren't happy with the bandanas I choose in this video, sorry, I'm using what I've got, but I think it'll turn out really cute. And it's something else that, again, is navy, and my husband's school colors are navy, so maybe I can wear it to games next season, who knows, but I'm definitely going to wear it this summer. And yeah, so let's get to it. Let's get started on this process so you too can have a Sandra skirt bandana, or a Sandra bandana skirt is what we should say, right? All right, let's get started. Okay, as previously mentioned, we are beginning the sewing process. I started with the front side panels and then I moved to the back side. So the first step is to piece all of your bandanas together. I just used a 3/8 inch seam allowance as I pieced all of them together. And before I sewed them together, I made sure that they were the same dimensions. With that craft bundle, sometimes they are cut really big. And so I just cut them out, but I did not film that process of cutting them to the same scale as the store-bought bandanas. I used a 3/8 inch seam allowance, so not as big as 5/8. Not a 1/2 inch either, just simple 3/8, and connected all of them together in order to get the panels. So I started going one row at a time and I began piecing them together. So you can see here, this is my very first panel, and I'm going to then get the third bandana for that panel. Each row has 3 bandanas across, and then each full panel, before I'm piecing the front part together, is a total of 9 bandanas. So it's a 3x3 panel. My house was just way too chaotic and messy to show you how I laid out the bandanas on our dining room floor. But essentially, I just laid them out row by row so I knew which bandanas I wanted to be displayed front and center, and then I just kind of placed them around. Again, I'm still doing that diamond pattern, so you'll see that later in this video, but for right now this is just the easy piecing together. So again, I attached 3 together, and then I'll attach the next row of 3, and then I'll attach the 2 rows together. So here I am beginning to work on the second row after I just finished the first row. Okay, another row complete, and then I'm going to move on to the last row of this front panel or back panel, depending on which way I wear the skirt. This process takes maybe 45 minutes for all 18 bandanas. You're just stitching straight lines down the bandanas and making sure they match up, and then connecting them all together. So it's a very quick process. I think the longest part for me was figuring out how I wanted the layout for when I ultimately cut into the bandanas. That took longer than the actual sewing process. All in all, the front panel of 9 bandanas took about 20 minutes to sew up all 3 rows together. And I will move on to the next row here in a second. I did not clean finish the back of these bandanas because they were already clean finished, and I think that this is what made this step so quick, because there was no serging or French seams or whatever you want to finish, because for the most part the bandanas were already clean finished. I simply repeated this process for the back 9 bandana panel, and then I plan to take them to school to cut them out. All right, here we are a few days later. I had time after school while I was waiting for a meeting to cut my bandanas, and I took them with me to school, and then I cut them out into the pieces of the skirt panels. So you're gonna see this process right now, and I'll talk you through how I got it. I'm not gonna lie, it was very, I think the word is jerry-rigged. I forgot to bring my pattern paper with me, and so I had to use what I had in my classroom, which wasn't very much. So I had leftover like wall paneling paper that you put on your walls in your classroom, and I could only fit 3 panels on it. So then I kind of had to put the panel on one side and then trace, and then put the panel on the other side and trace. So you'll see it's probably the most chaotic tutorial ever, but hopefully you have a piece of just 1 sheet of paper that you can make this pattern as well. So the first step is to take pattern piece A and lay it out onto your paper. Again, I had a very limited paper in my classroom. I forgot my pattern paper at home. But remember that this panel piece has built-in seam allowance, which is 5/8 of an inch on both sides. So I measured up 5/8 of an inch, and luckily it landed on one of the markings. And so I folded up around the pattern piece at 5/8 of an inch on both sides of the pattern before I traced them, because we want to take out that seam allowance so that the skirt's not too big. So here I am folding up at that 5/8 of an inch to get rid of the built-in seam allowance that's in this pattern piece, so that when I lay the panels out, they don't have the extra seam allowance. Now, I'm sure if you had a fancy projector, you could figure this out on your own. I don't own a projector yet. I plan to someday, but not until we get a bigger house and a bigger sewing space will I invest in a projector. So until then, I always use PDF prints that I go and print out on the big sheets, and they work just fine for me in this season of my life. So just remember to take out the seam allowance if you are completing this tutorial, so that way your skirt does not end up a million sizes too big. Now that one side is complete, we will take the seam allowance out of the other side by continuing to fold up that paper 5/8 of an inch, and then we are ready for tracing. I laid my folded over panel piece onto my paper, and the first thing I did was trace it to create that middle anchor point. So that's my panel piece number 1, I'm calling it. Then I flipped it over to the other side to trace a second panel, and then I went back to the middle and flipped it over on the other side of the middle to create a third panel. My paper could only fit these first 3 panels, so hopefully when you're tracing, you have much bigger paper at your dispense. Again, I didn't, and I apologize for the chaotic nature of this tutorial, but we work with what we've got. Don't forget to mark all notches while you're completing this step. That is something that I did not do, and looking back at this film, I would have gone back and marked those notches. It just helps you with the pocket placement and where the panel should be meeting. Don't forget to mark the notches for your pocket placement. I did forget this step and then had to go back and place it onto my cutout fabric. So don't be like me. Remember those pocket pattern notches. I did end up tracing all the sides of each panel just because I wanted to make sure that I was lining it up correctly and not just tracing the top and the bottom, which obviously you can't see on this view because I didn't realize my camera was zoomed in, so I apologize for that as well. But here you can see I'm trying to lay it out there, seeing if it will fit, and ultimately it doesn't fit, so I take that panel piece to the other side, and I'm going to trace it on the other side as well. And after I trace it on the other side, I'm going to number them, panel piece 1, 2, and 3, and then cut it out, and then you'll see how I made the adjustment to add the other 2 panels on to the skirt when it was already placed on top of the bandana. So again, if my paper was wide enough, I would have put all 5 panels onto this paper, but unfortunately it wasn't, and because my camera zoomed in, you can't see that. So here I am cutting this wallpaper in order to continue the process onto my bandanas. Starting with the first panel, I've laid it out. Again, we're going to use that diagonal shape, so I have it laid out exactly how I want it. Again, cutting in my classroom leaves me with very limited tools, so I'm using duct tape as pattern weights, and here I'm showing you where I'm going to place the pattern piece on each side in order to get that 4th and 5th panel. So you can see I've already traced one side, and then I traced the other. And now I'll cut to get my first panel. Here it is in all its glory. So cute. And for the second panel, here she is in all her glory. You can see her all big in my classroom. For the second panel, I'm just going to lay the already cut out skirt on top to cut it out quickly. So I wanted to get home really quick, so I just laid it right on top and cut it out and went home. So we have one panel of our skirt here. Again, these were all the leftovers, so I kind of had to put them into the colors the best I could. So one side of my skirt is going to be very blue and very green, and it has like a little bit of peach to tie into the back. The other backside, like I just showed you, it's more of those browny earth tones, but still the navy blue right there pulled through on that bottom bandana. So again, I didn't have much to work with as opposed to the first time I made this skirt. I had way more bandanas to choose from. So the good news about this skirt though is that it's the same panels on the front and back, so technically this skirt can be worn as a reversible. So I can just like twist it one way and then twist it the other way depending on what color I'm feeling that day. So that is the pro. We're gonna look at the pros, not the cons that the whole skirt doesn't match all the way around. Don't be that person. Again, if I was going to be buying bandanas like I did for my first skirt, I bought a ton of them off of this website called Hand Cur. So I'll put like a little picture here of their website, and I'll also link it below in the description. They do these craft bundles, and the craft bundles were so beautiful. I think I got about 15 bandanas in it. I'm not sure of the exact number because I got it back in December, this past December, to make it in January for basketball season. And so it was about 30 bucks for I think 15 bandanas, and these bandanas weren't perfect. Like they were all there like imperfections, but I mean, does this look imperfect to you? Like you could hardly tell like what was misprinted. No one's gonna get that close up to your garment and be like, oh, what a misprinted bandana. Absolutely not. So they just weren't cut to a true bandana size. So I did a lot of cutting down to kind of match up the bandana seams. But I've also seen like another viral dress going on right now from another maker, and I forget her name, and she's been doing like dresses out of handkerchiefs, which I think are so cool. But yeah, this one is just bandanas. And then obviously like I've had a ton of like green bandanas because the last school that I worked at, my pathway color was green. So I kind of brought those in, and then I bought kind of just a small pack of like neutrally colored bandanas, like the tans and the terracottas and the oranges. So to kind of tie everything in. So that's what I'm working with. If I was to do this again and buy everything brand new, I'd probably like splurge on another craft bundle for 30 bucks. And then maybe like buy a few of their just regular bandanas that I really like, and then pray that I get really good bandanas in that craft bundle. But like I said, I was not disappointed in my craft bundle. I read some of the reviews on the website, and some people were like super negative per usual. So I have to remember that not everyone is like comes from the viewpoint of optimism. Like some people are just naturally pessimistic. So I was pleasantly surprised with the bundle I got, and some of the ones that I got in there I wouldn't have necessarily picked out, but now that I have them, I think they're so cute. So let's finish sewing this up. Again, this is the Sid Graham Sonder skirt pattern, or Sandra, not Sonder, oh my gosh, Sandra skirt pattern. And we are just gonna sew it up per her tutorial instructions. So I'm doing absolutely nothing different. The only thing I'm going to be doing different on this pattern, again, and I already mentioned it in the intro of this video, but I'm gonna be adding a thicker waistband. I just don't like the thinner waistband on the other skirt I made. And eventually, like at some point, I'll undo that waistband and redo it. But for the purposes of this one, I am gonna make my waistband thicker. Just because I'm thicker in the middle right now postpartum. So yeah, let's get started. Like I said, I did follow the Sid Graham or Sydney Graham Sandra skirt tutorial. She has it posted on her YouTube channel, and it's so easy to follow. So I French seamed my pockets, I French seamed the side seams. The only adjustment I made differently was just increasing the width of the waistband, which could affect the fit, but I made the proper adjustments for that as well, and hemmed it as normal. So I didn't change anything except just increasing the width of the waistband. But you'll see here, I'm just following her steps. I'm not going to really lay it out step by step at this point. I'm just going to play some music. But if you want a really detailed version, she has a beautiful, beautiful video on her channel. So we're about to do French seam this down the side, but this was a happy accident. I did not mean for this peach to match this peach on this side. So on the other side, they're probably not going to match. What might look a little funky when I wear it, but happy accident. I didn't mean for these to match up like that. So, oh well. This skirt 4 times now. Like, this is my 4th time. And I attached it on the wrong side. So no matter how many times you've made something, you can still make rookie mistakes, which is what I'm doing now. So now I have to unpick all of this and put it on the outside, not the inside. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm actually like getting distracted because I'm watching YouTube videos of, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Pacific Crest Trail. So right now in Southern California, a lot of people start their hikes. It's a trail that goes from Mexico to Canada, and you hike all through California, Oregon, and Washington. So yeah, I am distracted because this is around the time of the year, March and April, when many of the hikers start their trips. And so I just like always go on to YouTube and type in like PCT through hike, and then I did 2026. And so now I found a couple of hikers that I want to follow their whole journey, because I just think it would be so fun at some point in my life if, like, God willing, my body lets me. Obviously, I'm a mom right now, so that's not, I mean, I'm going to be a mom for the rest of my life, but I'm a mom to a very young baby, so I don't think that, you know, now's the time to do it. But at some point, if I get the opportunity to hike the PCT, I'm totally doing it. So it's kind of like a random side fun thing that I love. So we live kind of near many stops on the PCT here in Southern California, and so it's just fun to see it from the perspective of people who aren't from this area and or who are hiking California for the first time. So I was getting distracted by videos, and that's why I did not catch this air. So now I'm going to do a ton of seam ripping. So after that minor mishap, we are done. I've increased the waistband to 1.5 inches from the pattern recommendation of 1 inch. She is ready to be worn on the town. So I hope you enjoyed this semi tutorial. If you did, please like and subscribe for more. And until next time.